So, you want to play an old DOS game like Elder Scrolls Arena, Wolfenstein 3D, or Ultima 7. How do you even get started on doing that? My name is Nick, and this is a tutorial on how to use DOSBox for retro games with Nick. So how do you even get started playing an old game on modern computers? Well, naturally, the first thing you need to do is to get yourselves the files or the CDs for said old game. Now, I'm going to assume that you're going about the legal route. This might mean downloading the game off of some abandonware website, if it is in fact abandonware and free to use. But if you're looking to buy most old games, and again, by old I mean the stuff that we're considering retro for this channel, so 1984 to 2006, then my suggestion is to go to the website GOG.com. Now, this is not a sponsored video. I don't get any kind of kickback from GOG. I would love to, but I'm not getting any. I'm suggesting this website because I truly think it has a wonderful collection of old games. Some of the most obscure stuff you might have heard of is here. And because it's an online marketplace, and, you know, Steam and GOG and Epic Games keep trying to, get people to buy stuff from them, there's tons of sales happening at all times. Now, GOG sells both modern and old games, but again, my main interest in it, and most of my library, is in old games. So if you buy a game from GOG, you then get a few options. Here, for example, is what happens after you purchase a game and go look at it in your library. You get a couple of different options. You can download and install the game through the service, the client that GOG offers called GOG Galaxy, which has the nice feature that it can keep track of your games across multiple platforms, both PC and consoles, and offers quick, easy installs of everything at once. Or you also get the option, because everything about GOG is DRM-free, to download an offline backup game installer, as well as any extras that would have come in the package. And this is really what we're looking for the most part, because games back in the day, you had to read the manual, you had to look at codes in the box to make sure that could be able to bypass the anti-piracy measures. You needed the map to go around, you needed reference cards, so these goodies are all things you need to really enjoy the game to the fullest, and GOG provides them for you. So what I decided to do was to go on GOG Galaxy and download the game directly. So I clicked the button here that originally was install. I picked the folder and all that. I also made sure to go into extras and download, again, manuals, map, avatar, reference cards. Everything gets added to the download pile. It's a download pile, it's downloading everything, and everything is good. And so then you go back to the page you were on, and if you want the easiest possible way to play a game that you buy on GOG on your modern computer, all you do is hit the play button. If you hit the play button, the GOG Galaxy will build its own version of DOSBox and start the game in full screen. And you have basically nothing to worry about, nothing to do, you're just good to go. If you don't like it full screen, I personally don't like most DOS games being full screen because my screen is pretty big, all things considered. Alt plus Enter will put it in normal mode. The other issue with full screen is that it might change the aspect ratio, right? This is a game in 4/3. I guess it is kept in this case, but some games might stretch out. I know I had this issue with Wolfenstein 3D, and so it's better to just play it in a window, at least personally. So this is the easiest way for you to be able to actually install and play a game bought on GOG. But what if you either didn't buy the game on GOG and just have a bunch of random files that you found on some website, or you don't want to have a separate DOSBox installation for every game, and you just want one DOSBox installation and all your games in a subfolder of a given folder, and you just want to basically use DOSBox as if it were your computer, move into the folders, start the games, and just live within DOSBox. That's going to be what we're going to talk about next in part 2 of this video. So let's now suppose you don't want to do shortcuts, or you just have the files, the actual DOS files for a game, or even just like the DOS install files for a game. How do you run that? Well, the first thing you need is DOSBox, which is the most popular and most widely used emulator for DOS. Now, the official version is found at DOSBox.com. However, the thing is, there hasn't been a new major release in this since the mid-2010s. I think 2014 was the last time that version 7.4 was released. As you can see, the very last update is 5 years old when 7.74-3 has been released, fixing a couple bugs. As you can see, ideally, a 0.75 should have been released by now, but some bugs took a lot longer than expected. And we don't seem to be anywhere near that. So you can download this version of DOSBox, or you can instead search for the DOSBox Community Edition. And basically what this is that people are just taking the reasonably latest release on SourceForge of the source code of DOSBox, adding some mods, and just making sure that it runs better. Now, I want to say, everybody says this is kosher, everybody says this is fine. I still am not responsible for whatever you decide to install on your computer. Classic disclaimer. So what you do is you just download this package, which you can find... That's a good question. Where do you find it? I think you probably just follow this drive folder. You download the Community Edition, and you just extract it in a folder of your choice. So let me show you the process. Go ahead. Here it is, and all you do is you just, download whichever version you want. If you're running on Windows, this is the version you want. If you're running on Linux, you want this one. There's no Community Edition for Mac, so if you want to play DOS games on a Mac, you're kind of out of luck. And make sure to check out the README as well. We're going to pick the Windows version. And we're not going to double click it because that opens it. Instead, we're going to right click and click download. Taking some time to scan for viruses. Just download. You open it up in your whatever application of choice. I personally use WinRAR, and you extract all of this to whatever folder you wish. Standard stuff. Now that you have unpacked the RAR file or zip file into a directory of your choice, you just click DOSBox.exe, and DOSBox opens up. And you're done, right? Not quite. There's some things that you need to do. First of all, note the basic commands that they're offering you. Intro gives you a short introduction for new users. Help tells you what the supported shell commands are. To adjust the CPU speed, you can use Ctrl and F11 and F12. To activate the key mapper, press Ctrl F1. So, right now, what DOSBox does is basically just set an audio card emulation for you and then just leave you to your own things. The first thing you need to do is to figure out whichever folder in your hard drive you want to use as your fundamental DOS directory. So what you should think of DOS is basically to install a basic version of Windows somewhere on your computer, but Windows I guess technically not Windows, right? Because it's not Windows. A version of an operating system that is restricted to a specific folder. And to do this, what you do is you type mount C, and then you put the folder where you want the quote-unquote C hard drive of DOS to be located. Personally, what I did, I just created a DOS folder in my D drive, so that's what we're going to use. And then we click C, and C colon to move to drive C in DOS. Now we have, at the very least, mounted a drive so that DOS thinks that we have a hard drive that we can work with. What you want to do next is copy the essential files, and only the essential files, into a folder somewhere in your DOS C drive. Now, how do you figure out which folders are which based on the game that is installed? Well, a peculiarity of MS-DOS is that all folder and file names are all uppercase and are limited to 8 characters per file name. So you can easily spot the things that you need to take because they're the only ones that have a name that's full uppercase. So, for example, for the Police Quest 4 game, we're looking at checkcd.bat, pq4.gog, pq4cd.bat, readme, resource.cfg, and these are all of them. And what you want to do is you want to create a new folder. And again, to avoid having issues, just name it all capitals, at most 8 characters. So we're going to do PQ4. And then you're going to copy all the files that you picked into this directory. And in the same way, for Warcraft 1 Orcs and Humans, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it Warcraft, which conveniently has 8 characters. And then here, the data folder definitely needs to come. The DOSBox, of course, does not, right? The drivers folder probably does need to come as well. Config, DOS4gw.exe, path.war, prefs.war, readme.txt, setup.exe, war.exe, waredit, waredit.txt, war1.bin, war1.q. Okay, and then we copy and paste them in this folder as well. Now you're like 90% of the way through playing the game on DOS. So I closed DOSBox while I was setting something up, so let me reopen it, and we once again have to do all the stuff that we did at the beginning. So we have to say mount C, D DOS, we switch to drive C, and then we're going to change directory, CD, into games, Warcraft. If you want to see all the files that are listed inside the directory, you use the command dir. And so what you can do is you're like, okay, you found the exe that matches. Let's try setup and see what you get. And so this particular setup is about the sound cards for the settings of the game, essentially, which for most DOS games are a separate executable than the main game. So escape. Looks like we have sound blaster. So these ports, 220, etc. We can't see them now, but they're the basic information that is included into DOSBox. I'm gonna assume that all of these are fine. Music sound card. 30. Save settings and exit. So then we type war to start game, as the game suggests. And boom, we're playing. Pretty cool, huh? One thing to notice is that this particular install of the game on GOG also gave us the CD of the game, right? War1 bin, war1 q. If you want to, you can also try mounting the CD, or rather the Q file, as if it were a CD so that your DOS recognizes it as a CD. So let's try doing that. What you do is you want to use the command image mount. You want to pick a drive letter that corresponds to your fake DVD, well, not DVD, fake CD drive on your DOS. Typically the letters are, taken in increasing order. So if C is your hard drive, D, E, F, etc. would be your CD-ROMs. You want to include the name of the image file. And then this is an ISO file. I know it says .q, but trust me, TISO, FS ISO. And then you switch to drive D. And then you click install. And what you get is the ability to install the game directly from CD instead of just copying the game files as we did from the GOG install. So basically what GOG does, what it does automatically install the game for you, is that it first installs or it copies on your drive the CD files, and then it gives their own version of DOSBox a series of commands to automatically execute during the installation phase that automatically take care of everything for you. But here, you would just be like, okay, we'll want full install. We're going to pick a different directory than the one, well, no, why not? Why can't I guess it's all lowercase, that's fine. We're just installing the game conveniently in the same directory. And this is an actual game install, so it will take a minute. I will let it do it and fast forward till the end of it. All right, and then as part of it, it automatically also runs the setup utility. And now we can play the game as we did. So first case scenario, we either get directly all the game files from GOG already unpacked. We just bring them over to our DOS C drive somewhere, and then we switch to that C drive using DOS commands and run the game program. And I'm assuming that if we run war_edit, this is gonna unit editor. Oh, I thought it was a map editor, not a unit editor. Oh, you can change the hit points, the armor points of everything and create your own hack. That's cool. So you can't edit the maps, but you can edit the unit values of things. And you can edit the spells, the range, mostly, the damage. Time to research all the texts. Even though you can give human knights range, I think, right? Give me space bar. Okay, I guess it looks like if there is no entry, you can't, but you can change the attack range of the catapult to, for example, the max of 9. Oh, 9. And so forth. Okay, that's pretty cool. Anyways, this is the first case. The second case, we also saw in Warcraft, you're given a bin and a queue, or you find yourself a bin and a queue, or an ISO, and then you use this command. Image mount, drive ladder, the image file, and then T is image type, and this is telling basically DOSBox to treat this particular file or directory, because you could also mount these as directory, but this particular file as an ISO file, and the file system is also an ISO file system. Now there's another option, which we'll see in Police Quest 4, CDPQ4. Now, if you list the files in this game, well, we don't really have an executable, right? We have a batch file, we have a GOG file, which is clearly not a standard extension. We have a README, we have a resource file that is a configuration file, and we have another batch file. And if you try to run PQ4CD or checkcd, you won't run into it. So how can you figure out what's happening here and how to install whatever DOSBox did, which we've shown actually runs, to run onto your machine? This is when you have to look at the... Where did my mouse go? This is when you have to go back to your files in the GOG folder or wherever you've downloaded the game from and look at the configurations that are set. In particular, if you look under the auto exec lines, which might be in either the main configuration file or sort of a secondary configuration file that is added to it at some point, you're seeing, based on what we just learned, that pq4.gog is actually an image file. It's not one of the standard image formats, because GOG decided to just change the extension of it, and maybe because the origin of the file itself is different, but it really is just a, what's it called? An image file. So we follow the same thing, and we're like, okay, well, what we're going to do is then we're going to do image mount E, because the D drive is already taken. I just wondered if you could maybe override the D drive with whatever you're doing. Let's not figure it out. Let's just mount it on E. We want to mount PQ4 GOG. It's an ISO file, and the file system is ISO. Switch to drive E. Now, you'll see a setup.exe. But if you try to do that, it says this program requires Microsoft Windows. The issue that we have when we wrote dir is that half of the directory is missing. So what you need to do is you need to use a special command in MS-DOS to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that command is... Oops, was in the wrong spot. I don't want to really accidentally change the thing. Command is dir/p. So what this is going to do is it's going to list the directory, but pause anytime you reach the end of the screen, because DOS didn't have scrolling. And you see there's also an install.exe file. Now, a typical thing for these games that were sort of cross Windows and DOS is that to install it on Windows, you would use the setup.exe. To install it on DOS, you would use the install.exe. So what we're going to do is we're going to run install. And we're running into the install setup program for the Police Quest 4. We want it to be in drive C, because that's the only drive we have. It's always interesting to check what you have, how to install. See, it tells you from DOS use install, from Windows use the setup. Which version? It's interesting that they suggested the DOS version. And then they have some tricks for slow machines, stuff like that. There's also a King's Quest demo. That's cool. All right, and when you're ready to do, you're like, okay, accept these choices. Oh, actually, change the directory just to be consistent. We're going to put it into C games, PQ4CD. In fact, let's just make it PQ4. We're going to assume we have a Sound Blaster Pro, I think, by default. Yep. You can see what's supported by our system through that. Okay, and then accept these choices and begin installation. We want to install everything, so we're going to do the faster game. It installed. Now we do dir, and suddenly our cgames pq4 directory has been filled with all sorts of stuff. We go pq4 cd, and Police Quest 4 is running. Alright, so this shows to you how to treat game files that either come already in the data or that come in form of a image file, how to mount them, and how to also, again, if you buy them from GOG and try installing the files from GOG Galaxy or just using the installs from GOG, they typically won't give you the image file directly. They either will, need to move out of the window, they either will install things in the directory already for you, or they will just have their own image file that you then need to mount and extract and install from. So why would we want to deal with something like that instead of just letting GOG Galaxy or Steam install things for us and set up things for us? Well, on the one hand, you have more control, right? You can choose what you install, where you install it, and the other thing that it means, that I personally like, is that you can have all your games neatly organized in the DOS games folder. Right now I have installed Doom 2, Elder Scrolls Arena, Heretic, King's Quest 7. I don't know what are two folders. I guess one of them is the actual game, and the other one is maybe just, yeah, it's just the ISO. That's why. Police Quest 4, which we just installed. This is a different version of King Quest 7. I have a lot of versions of King Quest 7 for some reason. I have to look into it. Warcraft and Wolfenstein 3D. So we are able to create a lot of different games in the same folder, and it's easier to keep track of because that way when you start DOSBox, you can just go like mount c d DOS, and in fact you can just even go DDoS games, and then you can just go C, and you can go, all of these directories are right there, and if you want to start Doom 2, you just go CD Doom 2, and then you pick the starting one, which is just Doom 2. You don't really have to hit the extensions if it's just an exe. Typically, the DOS program will know what to pick. And then you just start playing Doom 2. So you have more control on stuff. So if you want to manage your DOS folders yourself, you have more control over things, you can change setups, and especially because of the progress made by the community edition of DOSBox, which also includes early support to 3DFX video cards, you can play a whole lot of games and you can really have full control over it. And you can do other stuff like install Windows, on which I will probably record a separate video on at some point in the future. Now, do you have to go through what we just did every time? You know, it's not a lot of stuff, but especially if you want to mount an image file or something like that, it can be a lot of typing just to get started on a game. And the answer is not quite. That's why I have this other window open on the side. So what's going to happen is that you're going to find the configuration file for DOSBox at C, which is typically your main drive, or whatever your main drive letter is, users, your username, Nick in my case, of course, and then it's the app data folder, which is a hidden folder. If you're on Windows 10, to see it, you have to go into View, and you have to make sure that Hidden Items is checked, because if it's not checked, you won't be able to see app data. If it is checked, you can see it, get into it, then local, and finally DOSBox. And if you install, as suggested, the community edition, you want to click DOSBoxEC.conf. Now, if you want, you can change some things here. You know, there's like everything. So if you go into the main DOSBox folder, there's a whole README that you can read through. Though I would kind of suggest you just go onto the DOSBox ECE. Maybe not even the DOSBox ECE, just the DOSBox website. And then click on the DOSBox manual, and then everything is laid out here. Or if you're not sure, you can just click tutorial, and it takes you to their wiki, and you can just search the wiki and figure things out from there. That's my personal suggestion. But anyway, what we care about, just to set things up, is scroll to the very bottom of the configuration file. You can ignore basically everything else if you're happy with how things are. And add lines below in the auto-exec. These are commands that will be executed by DOSBox automatically every time that you start it up. So what I like to do, of course, is to put the lines mount C, the DOS, and then C. And then I usually also like to make sure I mount an image file just because it helps me remember the command for image mount. So let's also add image mount on the drive D. We're gonna go on to, so we're currently in drive C. So we wanna, and so if it's a path that is not a standard DOS path, you can still, you can still have weird names in your folders if you want, but then you have to use quotes to let DOSBox identify it as a string and then interpret it correctly on its end. So we want D DOS games PQ4 PQ4.gog. It's T ISO FS ISO. And then we save. And when we start DOSBox, boom. It's automatically mounting DDoS as our drive C. It's automatically mounting the image file as the image, and it's automatically putting us in C as well. So we don't have to do any of that. We can just directly go into CD games, and then pick whichever game we want to play. Let's say Heretic. And then go and play Heretic. Bang. There's other things that might be worth mentioning, like how to unmount a drive or how to mount multiple image files in the same drive, which is useful when you have an install that is made out of multiple floppy disks. But we'll probably cover those in a second video, maybe one where I go over how to install Windows and also find and install the drivers for Windows 3.1 for DOS. So you can do something really cool, like I just did earlier. CD Windows. Oh, actually, is it Windows or is it Win? Yeah, it's Windows. And then the command is Win. And hey, that's Windows 3.1 running in DOSBox. Isn't that cool? All right. That's gonna do it for this video. So thank you for watching. I hope this is gonna help some of you get started with DOSBox emulation. I know that when I started looking at it, it looks very complicated. It's actually not that hard. It just takes you a couple days to really dig through it and try things out on your own and read some wikis or read some files. And then you're just able to set it up. So thank you for watching. This was a quick tutorial on retro games with Nick. Feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let me know if this helped you get set up with DOSBox, and any other kind of these tutorial videos for DOSBox you'd like to see me do in the future. In the meantime, this is Nick signing off, saying, let's keep retro playing together.